Hello everyone, here I'm going to explain about mechanism of hearing. This concept is very easy. If you know the structure of the ear. In my previous video session, I had explained about the structure of the ear. Ear is divided into three parts: external ear, middle ear and internal ear. If you have not watched that video, please watch it. So otherwise it will be difficult for you to understand the mechanism of hearing. So I'm requesting you to watch that video, okay? Because we need to know what is the main component, what is there inside the internal ear. Okay, this is very important, because internal ear is the one where the sound, that is vibration, that will be converted into the action potential. Okay, so this is the internal ear component, which is called as the labyrinth. So this is labyrinth. Okay, so bit complex in structure, and I had explained everything about labyrinth, but now let me just explain it superficially. So this particular structure, the white color structure, is called as the bony labyrinth. The outer cover, okay, of the labyrinth is the bony, and inside, if I cut this and you see one more tiny pipe. Okay, so for example, you can see this is the bony labyrinth, and this one is the membranous labyrinth. So this labyrinth has two parts: bony, membranous. Got it? And between the membranous and the bony labyrinth, there is a cavity that is filled with a liquid called as perilymph. Peri means outside, perilymph. And within the membranous labyrinth canal has a liquid called as endolymph. So these things are very important. Okay, fine. Now we'll see. I'll just give you the overview of the mechanism of hearing, how exactly the vibration travels inside the ear. Then I'll write stepwise. So first is, so now the vibration which is now created, and ultimately it hits the external ear. This is called as the pinna, correct? So this is the pinna. It is also called as earlobe. See, it is designed in such a way that it can collect the vibration from all sides, correct? And ultimately this pinna now directs the vibration into the inside of the ear through a canal. So we have a canal here. Next to the pinna, we have a canal. This canal is called as external auditory meatus. What is the function of external auditory meatus? They have a specialized glands called as ceruminous glands, which secretes cerumen, which is nothing but ear wax. Okay, and ultimately the vibration now hits this part. So this part is called as the tympanic membrane or eardrum, correct? So this is the tympanic membrane, and the vibration now hits the tympanic membrane. Now you see the cavity here. This cavity is filled with the air, because towards the lower surface of this cavity there is a long pipe which runs to your pharynx, which is called as eustachian canal. Okay, which is very important for maintaining the equilibrium of air pressure. Okay, so that is between the middle ear and the outer ear, external ear, very important. Okay, so ultimately now vibration reaches the tympanic membrane, and it now hits the three ear ossicles. That vibration is collected by three ear ossicle. See here, one ear ossicle, that is ear bone, called as the malleus, the first one, which is attached to the eardrum, which now collects that vibration, now transmit that vibration to the second bone, which is attached to the malleus, called as incus. Now incus is attached to the last ear ossicle or ear bone, which is called as the stapes. Stapes are the smallest tiny bones in our body. Okay, this stapes is now attached to this particular inner surface, correct, of the middle layer, which is the point of connection between the middle layer and the internal layer of the ear, or internal part of the ear. So what we call this structure, this is called as fenestra ovalis. This structure is called as the fenestra ovalis, which contains oval window. Okay, through the oval window, now the vibration which is now transmitted or carried to the internal ear. So in the internal ear, we have this structure, particularly this side of the labyrinth. This is labyrinth now. This side of the labyrinth now connected to the fenestra ovalis or oval window, and now this particular bony labyrinth collects that vibration, and inside the bony labyrinth we have two components, that is perilymph and endolymph. Endolymph is present within the membranous labyrinth. Now entire liquid, that is perilymph and the endolymph, vibrates. That will be carried to the cochlea. So this is the cochlea. So ultimately the endolymph within the cochlea, endolymph is present within a structure of the cochlea called as scala media. Scala media. Okay, so scala media now vibrates, and Very close to the scala media, just below that, there is one membrane which is called as the basilar membrane. The basilar membrane got a small organ which is called as organ of Corti, which contains tiny hair cells, that is auditory hair cells. Okay, so auditory hair cells now receive that vibration and they start bending like this. They bend, and ultimately the auditory hair cells touches another structure called as tectorial membrane. Okay, tectorial membrane is present just above the auditory hair cells or organ of Corti, and these tectorial structure will now collect that vibration and convert that vibration into action potential. Then they transmit that action potential into the auditory nerve. Now auditory nerve transmit that action potential to the auditory cortex of the brain. So this is the thing is happening, that is nothing but mechanism of hearing based on the memory and learning skills. For example, see mechanism. So now we are familiar with the word mechanism, but when we were young, we did not even know about the term mechanism. What is exactly mechanism? So because of the learning, we understood. We can easily recognize the word mechanism. Correct? I'm saying mechanism. So very simple. Correct? Okay. So based on the memory as well as learning skills, the brain will recognize what is that sound is, and ultimately through efferent fibers so within the brain, and we can recognize the sound. So here the auditory nerves which actually takes that particular vibration in the form of sound into the brain is called as afferent fibers. Afferent, got it? Whereas efferent is the impulses, which is regulatory impulses from the brain to the sight. So this is all about the mechanism of hearing. Let me write for your understanding. Okay, so the step number 1 is external ear. Okay, I'll write it in short. External ear, which now collects the vibration. Now the vibration is now transmitted to the external auditory canal or auditory meters. Okay, so we write auditory meters, that's a pipe. Okay, and then the vibration now hits the tympanic membrane. So tympanic membrane. Okay, and now the tympanic membrane actually transmit that vibration into the middle part of the ear, which contains malleus. These are ear ossicles. Next to the incus. Next it will be transmitted to the smallest bone called as stapes. Now the stapes will transfer that vibration to the wall that is present between the internal ear and the middle ear, that is called as fenestra ovalis. Okay, which is nothing but containing a small hole called as oval window. So through the oval window the vibration, so that is the 5th step. Now vibration is collected by the labyrinth. The labyrinth containing two structures, that is bony labyrinth, and the other structure is actually called as membranous labyrinth. Okay, so here ultimately the vibration is traveled to the main organ for hearing is called as the cochlea. So this is the main structure. So if I just draw the diagram of cochlea here, so it will be easy for you to understand. So this is scala vestibuli, and this structure is scala media, and this structure is called as scala tympani. Correct? Okay, so what we have here just below the scala media, we have basilar membrane here. Okay, so the basilar membrane has a small organ here. Okay, so let me write the name, label it. Okay, and this structure is called as media. Okay, and this structure is called as tympani. Okay, so the scala vestibuli and scala tympani containing perilymph. Okay, fine. This one is containing endolymph. Okay, so here this is the basilar membrane. The red color line is basilar membrane, and the basilar membrane actually containing just above it has some things like organ here. Okay, I don't have any other color here. Let me use red itself. This is called as organ of Corti. Organ of Corti. So what is the specialty of this organ of Corti? It contains tiny, like for example, if I zoom it and draw here, this organ of cortex containing tiny hair cells, and these hair cells are called as auditory hair cells. Auditory hair cells. Okay, so when the endolymph actually ultimately reaches this region where the basilar membrane is present, the basilar membrane now vibrates. So that is actually the thing is happening in cochlea. So the first thing is the basilar membrane vibrates. That means it collects the vibration, correct? Okay, and ultimately just above the basilar membrane it has a organ called as organ of corti, which containing auditory cells. Okay, so here auditory hair cells vibrates. So again it vibrates. Now it starts to bend. Okay, it starts to bend towards a structure here. So we have one more structure here very close to the organ of corti. So when the hair cells bend, obviously it will be collected by this structure. This structure is nothing but called as tectorial membrane. So ultimately the tectorial membrane collects the vibration. That's it. Okay, so now the tectorial membrane is connected to so many numerous auditory nerves. That is nothing but auditory nerve fiber. Okay, so these auditory nerves actually collect that vibration. When they collect the vibration, automatically, it produces action potential. We all know that what is action potential. That is nothing but depolarization of the membrane, correct? When sodium influx takes place, ultimately the negative charge which is maintained within the axoplasm, that is inside of the axon, will go out of the axoplasm, that is outside of the axoplasm, towards the ECF, extracellular fluid. From extracellular fluid, sodium actually starts to move inside the axoplasm. Okay, so that makes positive charge inside, negative charge outside. That is the reversal of the charge. That's it. And ultimately this is generated, action potential or nerve impulse is generated, and this nerve impulse now reaches with the help of afferent nerve fibers, afferent fibers, to our auditory cortex region of the brain. That's it. So now in our brain, that is based on the memory as well as learning skills, so we can recognize what is that sound is. Hello. Yeah, you can recognize it now. Thank you very much.